You're listening to Young People Lead, a podcast brought to you by Children's Defense Fund. This season is called Bridging LA and features our Children's Defense Fund California Radical Imagination Fellows. They'll share their experiences and what it means to be heard, believed, and empowered within systems that often fail them. Let's get to it.
Welcome to Bridging LA. I'm Karina Ortiz.
I'm Dwayne Gill.
And Bridging LA is a podcast where we share real stories, real challenges, and real solutions from the voices of foster youth
and children's age youth
in Los Angeles.
Together as fellows, we are part of this fellowship designed to imagine new possibilities for our community through storytelling, advocacy, and creating change.
This podcast was born out of that vision. The Radical Imagination Fellowship brings together young leaders who lived experience in foster care, housing insecurities, and the juvenile justice system. We're using our voices to push back against stereotypes, highlight our resilience, and bring back bridges all around LA.
Each episode of Bridging LA will dive into a different theme that directly impacts foster youth and TAY. We'll share our personal journeys, highlight resources, and bring in community voices so that no young person feels like they're going through it alone.
We know that challenges are real in education, housing, and the justice system, and beyond that. But we also know that we can come together, share our stories, and imagine something better. Change is possible. Again, this is Bridging LA, and let's get into it.
Dear listeners, growing up in foster care, I was always treated like I was at risk. Teachers, staff, even random adults acting like I was destined to end up in juvenile hall. The stereotype was heavy. Foster youth are troublemakers, future inmates, or statistics waiting to happen. That kind of pressure builds up. When people expect the worst from you, sometimes you start to believe it. And for me, there was a moment where I did slip. I got into a fight and things weren't so good. I had to do community service, and later I was able to get my record expunged, but the experience shook me. I realized how easily one mistake could define the rest of my life, especially as a young foster youth. If I didn't fight for a second chance, that record could have followed me forever. The truth is, I've gone down that road and proved everyone right. The people who said foster youth always end up in the system. But I chose differently. I started redirecting my energy into things that would help me grow instead of tear me down. I got involved in advisory boards, joined fellowships, and started using my voice in spaces where people actually listen. I realized that just because I had a step back didn't mean I had to stay stuck. What I want to tell any youth or TAY who has been stereotyped, judged, or even caught up in the system is this. Your mistakes do not define you. People will try to put labels on you, and yes, some of us have records, but that doesn't mean you're locked into being that person forever. You can fight for yourself, for your future, and for the chance to be seen as more than a statistic. I won't lie, it's not easy. People will still judge you, even after doing good. They will still stereotype you as a foster youth, but the power is in proving them wrong. Not for them, but for yourself. Everyone deserves another chance. You're not different than anyone else. Much love, Karina.
Hello everyone, I'm Karina Ortiz. Welcome back to another episode of Bridging LA. Today's episode focuses on juvenile justice, a system that affects far too many young people, especially those in foster care experience and transitional age youth. I'm excited to be joined today by Melissa Milchman, who will be adding her expertise to this conversation. Melissa, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Thanks, Karina, and thank you for having me today. I'm honored to be here in community with you. My name is Melissa Milchman, Executive Director for the Coalition of Juvenile Justice, which is a nationwide coalition of state advisory groups, organizations, individuals, young leaders, and allies that are dedicated to preventing children and youth from becoming involved in the juvenile justice system. And when they do have system contact, we want to uphold the highest standards of care for their experience navigating that system. Our mission is to educate on and advocate for youth serving systems to be fair, effective, and rooted in community.
Thank you for that. I've actually seen firsthand how small mistakes or lack of support can lead to long-term consequences for some youth. And it's something that affects so many of us in our community. For our next question I have for you, Melissa, is what are some of the long-term effects that being involved in the juvenile justice system has on young people, especially those already facing challenges today, like foster care or housing instability?
We know that young people who experience the youth justice system experience long-term and more negative impact for their system involvement. So educational displacement and instability is one of those factors that increase the likelihood of system involvement and long-term system challenge. So anything we can do to ensure educational stability for young people is critical, because when you have system touch, it becomes more challenging to get your educational credentials, like your high school diploma or GED or secondary education credentials. We also know that it can become challenging to apply for housing or to apply for employment in certain jurisdictions that don't seal juvenile records from those institutions. Knowing how to ask for help to expunge and seal your records is also really critical for young people. And I will give a shout out to public defenders and legal advocacy groups and youth advocates who work really hard to help ensure that youth records stay confidential so that those long-term consequences can be mitigated. And the other challenge is there's so many different approaches to the length of time and the length of supports that young people who come into contact with systems receive. And so it can be really disorienting when you may time out of a program or age out of a program, but still have root causes that need addressing. And that continues to create those cyclical system experiences, because we want to make sure that young people are receiving long-term opportunities to have the resources and care that they need to thrive. So we don't want to see system involvement creating those education, employment, or housing challenges, because those are often the root causes that engage somebody environmentally and individually into systems in the first place.
Okay, thank you for that, Melissa. It's striking to see how being system involved can impact opportunities for school, housing, and other things, even employment later on. And yet, these youth still have so much potential. Now, for the next question I have for you, Melissa, is, from your perspective, what resources, programs, or interventions have you seen that really have helped youth avoid entering or re-entering the justice system?
We know that system involvement has long-term and potentially generational cycles of challenges, especially for youth who experience the youth justice system or maintain a record. It can have long-term consequences like, employment, educational outcomes, health outcomes are all more challenging for those who have these cycles of system involvement. So having strong cross collaboration amongst the systems that serve young people, having a continuum of care that addresses the multidisciplinary and multi-sphere needs of young people at the individual level are the things that we can do to prevent any system touch, and more importantly, cross-system touch.
Thank you for that, Melissa. I've also read data myself showing that certain mentorships, certain programs can help people from entering or re-entering the juvenile justice system. It's encouraging to know that there's actually solutions out there that will work. If you can change one policy or practice in the LA juvenile justice system, what would it be, Melissa?
I'm not an expert on LA. I bring a national perspective to this, but one thing that I think is resonating nationally is that we're seeing an increase in punitive enforcement approaches to community challenges, and we're seeing more youth arrests for activities and behaviors that we have other solutions for. I think we know that there's been a 20-year evidence-based data analysis that youth crime and arrest has been decreasing. And so when we see a media narrative around youth crime, it is driving reactive approaches, and we're seeing slide backs of long studied and evaluated and evidence-based public health approaches that address root causes. And so instead of investing more in community-based mentoring or violence prevention or engaging young people in after-school activities and recreation and diversion programs, we're seeing more punitive responses like arrest, prosecution, juvenile curfew policies being put in place. And the challenge with that is the outcomes don't show the same positive results as the other types of public health approaches do. Arrest and prosecution are not producing the same level of outcomes for community safety. So even though I think there is a lot of well-meaning, I think we all have the same goal that we want young people and families to thrive in their communities. We want people to feel safe in their communities. The solutions on their face that we are responding with are not necessarily the ones that we know achieve the best and most long-term outcomes for young people. So if I had one thing I'd like to see, what would it be? It would be to engage young people and communities in the conversation about what would make them and other community members feel safe and what gaps or needs they think should be filled and what solutions they think will work to fill those. So I think that's the best way we can approach turning around these slide backs and reactionary approaches to a narrative around youth crime that does not really match the data.
Thank you. I think about how much difference one well-designed policy could make for young youth myself. Now, for our last question, Melissa, how can community members, organizations, or policymakers get involved to better support systems involve youth?
So this is a very exciting question to me because October in particular nationally is Youth Justice Action Month, also known as YJAM. And YJAM is a month that honors the experience of youth who are currently in the justice system and those who have experienced the justice system. And it calls community members, youth, and their families to take action to make positive change and to create opportunities for young people to thrive. And so every week, and there's 5 weeks in October, we have a sub-theme. And the sub-themes, well, first, the theme for this year is YJAM 2025 United for Action. And each of the sub-themes for October are United for Understanding, United for Healing, Not Harm, United for Community Investment, United for Youth Leadership, and United for Building a Better Future. And what's cool about YJAM is it views youth not as participant, but the leaders in the space. And there are really powerful ways that youth can engage with their family members and their communities to be a part of YJAM. So you can organize or join a policy roundtable. You can lead social media campaigns. You can do leadership or advocacy training for communities and young people, grassroots organizing and storytelling, or you can engage with state advisory groups. So every state and territory in our country, except for I think Texas and Wyoming, but all the other states and territories have state advisory groups on juvenile justice that advise governors and help influence juvenile justice policy in their state. So I'm happy to share. You can go to youthjusticeactionmonth.org to get connected to YJAM activation resources, tools, and ways that you can get involved. And we actually publish a national calendar of all the events and activities happening all over the country so that people everywhere can connect to what's going on and activate to improve the youth justice system and improve the experiences of young people that touch our system.
Thank you for that. It's empowering to realize that everyone listening has the ability to make a difference, whether if it's volunteering, advocating, or just raising awareness. Melissa, I want to thank you so much for sharing your insights today. Your expertise helped us understand both the challenges and the possibilities for reform in the juvenile justice system today.
Thank you for having me. And for anyone who's interested in learning more about Coalition for Juvenile Justice and ways you can get involved locally in your state advisory group, I would invite you to visit us at juvejustice.org.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning into the Bridging LA podcast. Be sure to like and watch all the other episodes. Stay engaged because we will build a bridge knowledge with action. We can create safer, more supportive communities for our youth. I'm Karina Ortiz, and this has been Bridging LA. See you guys next time. Hello, listeners. This concludes the Bridging LA podcast episodes. We want to give a huge thank you to the Children's Defense Fund California, along with the Radical Imagination Fellowship. Shout out to our fellows for their support. Huge thanks to Community Coalition for allowing us the space to record and for being such a strong community partner.
Deep appreciation to the Conrad Hilton Foundation for providing funding for this project that's fostering meaningful conversations that matter. Can't forget the team of the Children's Defense Fund who work hard every day to ensure young people grow up with dignity, hope, and joy.
I'm Karina Ortiz.
I'm Dwayne Gill.
And this has been Bridging LA. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.